Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
After the excitement, Zhou Zhou looked at his remaining Lord Talent Crystal Fragment. After the consumption just now, there were 752 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 769 Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 133 White Silver Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 11 Yellow Gold Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 9 White Platinum Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 18 Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 9 Epic Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, 2 Legendary Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, and 6 Mythical Tier Unique Lord Talent Crystal Fragments left in his possession. Zhou Zhou looked at these Lord Talent Crystal Fragments and nodded slightly. Actually, from the looks of the Lord Talent Crystal Fragments in his hands, he had the conditions to upgrade some other Lord Talents. However, he felt that he was not in a hurry to upgrade the other Lord Talents. Therefore, he did not use these Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. In that case, there was a huge benefit. When he encountered some top-grade Lord Talents in the future, such as Lord Talents that were comparable to the Blessing of the 10 Gods, the Blessing of the War God, he could directly upgrade it through the Lord Talent Crystal Fragments he had accumulated. He did not need to wait for the accumulated time to upgrade it. In addition, he already had more than 20 Lord Talents. It would not increase their levels even if he had a lot of Lord Talent Crystal Fragments and distributed them equally to each Lord Talent. As for the Lord Talents of lower level, the effects were actually not very obvious to him. For example, the Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent, Gnome Alchemy Workshop that played a very helpful role when he first descended to the High Continent. With the increase in the number of doctors and Goddess of Life professionals in his territory, this Lord Talent had gradually decreased to the point where it could only provide potions. Their effects did not seem obvious, and that was indeed the case. Therefore, he did not need the low-level Lord Talent to increase by 1 or 2 levels. What he needed was Extraordinary Tier, Epic Tier, and even Legendary Tier and Mythical Tier Lord Talents. These advanced Lord Talents were either obtained from the enemy by luck or required him to accumulate a large number of Lord Talent Crystal Fragments to increase his top-grade Lord Talent to the advanced stage. He would therefore not use these Lord Talent Crystal Fragments easily. After that, he opened his Kingdom UI. Kingdom name: Blazing Sun Kingdom. Kingdom level: Beginner Kingdom. Flag of the Kingdom: Undecided. Royal Army: Blazing Sun Army, Yellow Gold Tier. Monster Army, White Silver Tier. Dragon God Army, White Silver Tier. Requirements for advancement to Intermediate Kingdom: Territory level advancement to Extraordinary Tier Elementary Grade, 10,000 Extraordinary Tier Mist Cores. Conquer 3 Elementary Crimson Kingdoms under the Crimson Overlord, 1/3. Conquer 2 Beginner Kingdoms that are not under the Crimson Overlord, 0/2. 500 Independent Regional Territories, 10 Race Heroes. 1 Epic Tier Elementary Grade Kingdom Token. Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the conditions to advance to the Intermediate Kingdom, and he could not help but frown. He was far from reaching the first step of upgrading his territory to the Extraordinary Tier Elementary Grade. After all, his current territory level was only White Platinum Tier Advanced Grade. He still needed to advance 4 more times to reach the Extraordinary Tier Elementary Grade. It seems. Normally speaking, a beginner kingdom can only be established by an Extraordinary Tier Lord faction. I'm just a White Platinum Tier Advanced Grade territorial faction, and I've already established a beginner kingdom. In terms of game terminology, it can be considered an action that exceeds the version. Zhou Zhou muttered. Then, he shook his head with a bitter smile. This condition alone extended the date for him to upgrade the Blazing Sun Kingdom to an Intermediate Kingdom indefinitely. Not to mention the subsequent conditions. 1. Conquer the 3 Beginner Crimson Kingdoms under the command of the Crimson Overlord. 2. Conquer 2 Beginner Kingdoms that were not under the command of the Crimson Overlord. Currently, the only Crimson Kingdom that Zhou Zhou knew of was the captured Taiyan Kingdom. Whether it was the Aurora Kingdom, the Netherbark Kingdom, the Titan Kingdom, or the Flame Spirit Kingdom that had just been found out, they were all veteran Kingdom-level Lord factions that belonged to the native life forms, not the Crimson Kingdom. He had heard of it. The territory of some lords in the Star Alliance was adjacent to the territory of some lords of the Crimson Kingdom. However, Zhou Zhou did not intend to cross such a long distance to conquer the Crimson Kingdom that was not close to his territory. Firstly, it was strenuous. Secondly, the distance was too far. Even with the spatial teleportation array, it would be difficult to manage it after conquest. If he had the energy and time, he would rather expand outwards to find the other beginner Crimson Kingdoms around his territory. Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou sent someone to call Wu Tu over. Then, he told him to continue exploring the unknown territories around the kingdom in the coming days. From tomorrow onwards, you will transfer soldiers from other armies to expand your heavenly army to 100,000 soldiers. In addition, you will take 3 Black Ghosts, 2 Star Knights, and 50,000 Mechanist Riders as military aircraft for your heavenly army. I want to greatly increase the strength of the heavenly army and strengthen your ability to explore the surrounding unknown territories, Zhou Zhou said in a low voice. As Blazing Sun territory was promoted to a beginner Kingdom Lord faction, the strength of the heavenly map army, the vanguard of the former king, had to increase along with it. Otherwise, it would seriously slow down his growth speed. Yes, your majesty, Wu Tu said excitedly. He felt that his majesty valued him and the heavenly two army more and more. I'm not done yet. Zhou Zhou smiled and took out a copy of the Proof of Legion, choosing to use it. Please confirm the name of your kingdom-level army. Heavenly Map Army, Zhou Zhou said in a low voice. The army's name, Heavenly Map Army, has been confirmed. Please confirm the Legion Commander, Deputy Commander, Logistics Chief, Machinery Chief. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he only filled Wu Tu's name in the position of Legion Commander. He would leave the rest to Wu Tuesday. The dead loyal Wu Tu would give him a good answer. He saw Wu Tu's body tremble before he raised his head and looked at him in shock. Your Majesty, he was at a loss. You don't have to ask why. It's normal for you to get an army with your and the Heavenly Map Army's contributions. However, the position of Legion Commander is both a power and a responsibility. Don't let me down, Zhou Zhou said in a low voice. Yes, Your Majesty. I will not let you down, Your Majesty. The excitement on Wu Tu's face gradually faded, and his expression gradually became serious. He said solemnly. Zhou Zhou nodded and waved his hand for him to leave. Seeing this, Wu Tu left respectfully. After he left, Zhou Zhou, who had nothing else to do, returned to his room to rest. Just as he entered his room, a beautiful figure pounced into his arms. It was Li Ya. They held each other for a while. Let's take a break. Zhou Zhou suddenly smiled evilly. Li Ya did not say anything. She just buried her head in Zhou Zhou's arms in embarrassment. Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. He then suddenly carried Li Ya in his arms and walked into the room. At this moment, the stars in the starry skies above also put on their scarlet veils in embarrassment. In the Pope's Hall in Netherbark Kingdom, the new Pope, Floyd, looked at the kobold before him. It was a kobold in a black cloak and shrouded in shadows. The god of shadow rays and hidden murder, Algernon. How long has it been since I last saw you? Floyd looked at the kobold and sighed. More than 50 years. Algernon said calmly. Floyd nodded. I have a quest for you. It said. Quest? Is it the moment of life and death for your Netherbark Kingdom? Floyd, don't forget. The God Lord sent me here because a holy son was born here 100 years ago. The God Lord sent me here to help you when you encounter a life and death crisis. This is a reward from the God Lord. It shouldn't be reduced to a tool for your political struggle. Algernon said calmly, having long heard about the battle between the new and old pope. He, who had firm and pure faith, disdained to be associated with them, let alone join them and be used by them. No, no, no. Algernon, you've misunderstood me. Why would I use a god spirit like you for such a boring matter? Do you know the Blazing Sun Kingdom that was just established today? He asked. Algernon shook his head. It had been praying piously recently and did not understand what was happening in the outside world. Let me tell you about it first, Floyd said with a smile. Then, it told Algernon about what had happened in the Blazing Sun Kingdom recently and the divine artifact of the race. According to that king of the blazing sun's strength and habits, the Aurora Kingdom, the Titan Kingdom, and even our Nether Bark Kingdom will probably be within his expanded territory. The King of Titans, who also guessed this, even came to me personally today to seek cooperation with me. Don't you think I should nip this matter in the bud before it happens? He stared at Algernon and asked. Algernon did not say anything. If what Floyd said was true, there was probably a 90% chance that the King of the Blazing Sun would attack the Netherbark Kingdom next. It is indeed a huge threat, it thought to itself. On the Pope's seat, Floyd immediately became even more excited when it saw the slight change in Algernon's expression. Its expression became even more pious as it said, "Not to mention, that King of the Blazing Sun even has a supreme treasure like a divine artifact of the race. That's a racial divine artifact that can be used by all races. It's a true treasure. If you can bring that race divine artifact over and offer it to His Excellency with me, His Excellency will definitely be very happy. He might even give you a reward." Algernon was even more tempted. As a true God spirit, he understood the value of this universal divine artifact of the race better than Floyd. That was a super treasure that even true God-tier and master God-tier existences would be tempted by, even though he did not know what its value was to be wanted by both true God-tier and master God-tier existences. But it didn't matter. He only needed to know that it was very precious. After offering it to the God level would be very happy. Floyd said his third reason when he saw the even more tempted expression on Algernon's face. Algernon, you've been with me for almost 100 years. Don't you want to get rid of your mission as soon as possible and make a huge contribution to go back and continue serving His Excellency? It tempted. Algernon fell silent. It was indeed tempting. I'll make a trip and take that human lord's life, Algernon said calmly after a long silence. Floyd was delighted. But at this moment, a blood stain suddenly appeared on the right side of its face. Blood dripped from the blood stain and quickly dyed half of its face with blood. At first, Floyd only felt that its face was a little cold. It realized that it was injured when it touched its face. It was about to flare up at Algernon when it saw it looking at it coldly. Even though you're the Pope of the God of Death Church of the Netherbark Kingdom, your status is equal to mine. But you're just an extraordinary tier advanced grade dog after all, while I am a god spirit that's worlds apart from you. I don't want to hear that kind of bait again. Otherwise, it won't just be your beautiful face that splits open. Then, he snorted and walked away. Floyd watched it leave angrily. After the other party walked away for a long time, the anger on its face gradually disappeared. It even smiled. With Algernon gone, not only can I resolve the greatest threat of the Netherbark Kingdom, I can also use this opportunity to completely suppress the old Pope side in the church. I can also obtain the admiration of His Excellency. Killing two birds with one stone, ha ha ha. Floyd could not help but laugh as it imagined a beautiful future. Beginner grade Lord's Paradise in the blazing Sun City. In the bedroom, Zhou Zhou and Liya were sleeping soundly. At this moment, a warning sound that sounded like a huge bell suddenly sounded in Zhou Zhou's mind. An incomparable sense of danger suddenly descended in his consciousness. Whoosh! Zhou Zhou sat up on the bed. His face was pale as he stared ahead with wide eyes. Why? Liya was also woken up. She sat beside Zhou Zhou and looked at the man in front of her worriedly. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He only frowned. He knew this alarm was because his talent, danger prediction, had been triggered. It must be a life and death crisis. Otherwise, the sense of danger that danger prediction gives me would definitely not be so strong. Zhou Zhou's alarm went off. On the surface, he did not reveal anything and even had a faint smile on his face. Liya, I'm sorry. I'm afraid you have to go back first. I have something to deal with. Zhou Zhou apologized. It was indeed not good to chase a girl who had just fallen asleep out in the middle of the night. However, he had no choice. In the face of such an invisible, terrifying threat, he probably wouldn't be able to protect others while protecting himself. He had to let the person closest to him leave his side first. This way, he could also let go of his methods to resolve this crisis. Liya was stunned. However, even though she was puzzled, she believed that Zhou Zhou was not a rude person. He must have a reason for saying that. Hence, she nodded, put on her clothes, and left. Seeing her leave, Zhou Zhou summoned all his heroes through the army interface. However, he did not let them approach him. He only asked them to hide outside the house and be ready to attack at any time. And then, Zhou Zhou waited quietly on the bed. A moment later, Zhou Zhou suddenly trembled, and the sense of danger in his heart reached its peak. He immediately looked around without leaving a trace. However, what made his heart sink was that at this moment, he did not see any enemies or sense any enemy's aura in his vision. At the same time, less than 2 meters in front of Zhou Zhou, the god of shadow rays and hidden murder, Algernon, was floating in front of him openly, looking at him calmly. It was as if it was looking at a dead person. The god of shadow rays and hidden murder, Algernon looked at the human lord in front of it. It could not help but think of the other party's information. King of the blazing sun. What an unbelievable human lord. He can actually reach this stage with just his human bloodline and even become the current strongest lord of all races. If he continues to grow, he might really become an overlord-level lord in the future. Algernon sighed. As a true god spirit, he had seen many unbelievable lords rise in his long life as a god spirit. However, this was the first time he had seen someone like Zhou Zhou who had reached this stage with the bloodline of a low-level human. It was a pity that such an elite was about to die under his dagger. At the thought of this, Algernon's eyes became calmer. He raised his right hand, and a black dagger that looked like a curved claw appeared out of thin air in his palm. The surface of this dagger emitted an inconspicuous black light that was actually shockingly energetic. If a life form looked over, they would immediately feel a chill run down their spine. Algernon reached out and placed the dagger on Zhou Zhou's neck, about to cut off his head. At this moment, the warning from his talent, danger prediction, instantly reached its peak in Zhou Zhou's mind. The alarm rang wildly. Zhou Zhou's hair stood on end. He disappeared from the spot without thinking. Algernon couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when its attack missed. Then, it calmed down. "There's no point in escaping," he said calmly. Then, his body dissipated into the darkness. Outside the beginner-grade lord's paradise, Zhou Zhou's figure appeared out of thin air. He panted slightly and frowned as he looked at the beginner-grade lord's paradise. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. In his powerful perception as a chaos human, he seemed to vaguely sense that an enemy was going to use some sharp weapon to cut his head off. That enemy should have grasped a relatively high-level meld skill, or even a law skill. Zhou Zhou felt that. The possibility of the latter was extremely high. If that was the case, the other party was either a high-level bloodline race that could master law skills in advance. For example, the Shepherd's God race, the Chaos Gods race, the original Spirit race, or a God Spirit. It was very, very difficult for normal life forms to master law skills. However, it was normal for God Spirits. This was because the most obvious and basic characteristic of God Spirits was mastering law skills. Zhou Zhou's heart was pounding at the thought of this. A God Spirit actually wants to kill me? Moreover, in the form of assassination? Doesn't this God Spirit have any self-awareness about being a God Spirit? Do you have to assassinate to kill me? Zhou Zhou complained in his heart. Then, he suddenly thought of something. That's not right. Why would a God Spirit attack me? Isn't he afraid of the Supreme Agreement? Wait. Zhou Zhou suddenly reacted. He was already a lord of a beginner kingdom. The Empire or Divine Kingdom Lord factions might not be able to attack me because of the Supreme Agreement. However, other kingdom-level lord factions that are no longer restricted by the Supreme Agreement and could attack me, the King of the Kingdom. If it is an old kingdom, it might really be able to invite a small number of low-level god spirits to attack me. The familiar bone-chilling sense of danger came again just as his thoughts were flying. Zhou Zhou teleported away again and appeared in an empty space hundreds of meters away without thinking. He looked at the place before he teleported. Nothing happened at that place. However, not only did Zhou Zhou not feel at ease, he even felt his blood run cold. What a terrifying meld ability. It was definitely a law skill level meld ability. You can actually dodge 2 of my attacks? This human lord only has the strength of a diamond tier advanced grade, but he can do this. He's indeed extraordinary. Algernon floated where Zhou Zhou had been before he teleported and looked at him hundreds of meters away in surprise. Then, his body disappeared again. Zhou Zhou looked at the empty surroundings and felt anxious. He knew at this moment he had to find the assassin's location. Otherwise, even though he could dodge it once or twice, it was impossible for him to use danger prediction to dodge it every time. He would definitely lose if he defended for too long. This was a principle that all living beings who read a little military books would know. He carefully sensed the location before he teleported in the distance. Suddenly, there seems to be the aura of shadow rays in that place. Zhou Zhou finally sensed the faint aura of the shadow rays with the light, sacred dragon bloodline in his body. Without hesitation, he immediately stood up and raised his hands into fists. Law skill, absolute light. The might of the holy dragon. An indescribably resplendent light suddenly erupted from Zhou Zhou's body. Under the illumination of this resplendent light, it was as if a small sun had slowly risen in the blazing sun territory, illuminating all the darkness and shadow. At the same time, a terrifying bloodline pressure suddenly erupted from Zhou Zhou's body, preventing all the shadow rays' evils from escaping. A scream sounded. Zhou Zhou suddenly opened his eyes. He saw a kobold in a black cloak holding a black scimitar-shaped dagger. It was shrouded in shadows and was more than 10 meters away from him. It was the god of shadow rays and hidden murder, Algernon. A text message appeared. God's true name, Algernon. God title, the god of shadow rays and hidden murder. God tier, low-tier deity elementary grade. Territory, Netherbark Kingdom. Ability overview. Originally a lowly god spirit in the god of death Thanatos pantheon. It is good at hiding in the shadows and assassinating. Later, it was sent by the god of death Thanatos to protect the Netherbark Kingdom because a holy son was born in the Netherbark Kingdom. Bloodline. Son of Shadow Rays bloodline. Mid-level god tier elementary grade. Skills. Law skill. Incarnation of Shadow Rays. Law skill. Death Shadow Dagger. Loyalty. None. The other party is not a territory subject. Potential. Mid-level god tier elementary grade. Hero biography. Zhou Zhou felt that it was a pity. The difference in strength was too great. He could not see all the other party's stats information. Nonetheless, he got to know the other party's background from the only information he had. Netherbark Kingdom. They did not expect them to actually make the first move. Very well. My Blazing Sun Kingdom will have been established for nothing if I don't settle scores with your Netherbark Kingdom tomorrow. Zhou Zhou's eyes were cold. However, he had to resolve the current crisis right at that moment. Just as Algernon revealed his figure, countless figures shot out from all directions and launched all kinds of attacks at Algernon. Hero skill, Greedy Wolf Devouring Arrow. Bai Yuan. Hero skill, 7 Swords Killing Move. Suan. Hero skill, Heaven and Earth Heart Arrow. Wu Tu. Hero skill, Dragon Slaying Axe Technique. Guo Xiao. Law skill, One Blade Ultimate. Feng Luo. Law skill, Absolute Light. Ingersoll. A large number of attacks of different forms attacked Algernon. Algernon was indeed an old low-tier god spirit who had become a god for many years. His state had decreased greatly, and it was even difficult for him to sense his surroundings because of the attack of absolute light. At this moment, he still used his precise dagger technique to block most of the attacks. Only a small number of attacks landed on him, but they did not cause much damage. Algernon was extremely furious. At the same time, it was very shocked. It never expected that the process of such a simple assassination operation, with the target being only a diamond-tier advanced grade lord, actually put it in such a sorry state. Moreover, The other party was only a diamond tier advanced grade, but he had actually mastered such a law skill that countered him so much. At this moment, it actually realized that there was no longer any chaotic elemental around him, such as death, shadow rays, and corrosion. He was vigilant. This law skill was definitely not simple. It could not delay any longer. If this dragged on, who knew if this king of the blazing sun would come up with new methods? He put away his relaxed thoughts. It decisively released its strongest law skill, the Death Shadow Dagger. At this moment, the world seemed to have darkened. Other than Ingersoll and Guo Xiao, who could barely tell that something was happening, the others fell into a dark environment. Zhou Zhou's perspective was even more shocking. This was because other than seeing darkness, he also saw a dagger that was like a black light shooting towards him like a meteor. Before he could react, the black dagger stabbed between his eyebrows. At this critical moment, a black scroll suddenly appeared between Zhou Zhou's eyebrows and automatically spread out, blocking the dagger's attack. It was the death immunity scroll that Zhou Zhou had exchanged from the god of death with a Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystal a long time ago. At this moment, it had a life-saving effect. Algernon, who had the intention to kill, was immediately stunned when he saw the black scroll. What's the relationship between this human lord and His Excellency the God of Death? He was actually given such a treasure by His Excellency the God of Death? Algernon thought in a daze. Zhou Zhou also saw Algernon standing rooted to the ground. This was a good opportunity. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. With a thought. Buzz. A holy sword made of gold and white quickly condensed in his hand. It was the newly obtained nomological skill, Holy Light Sword. In the next moment, Zhou Zhou disappeared from where he was. Then, he appeared in front of Algernon out of thin air. Finally, he stabbed his sword into Algernon's heart without hesitation. Puff. The Holy Light Sword passed through his body. Algernon lowered his head in a daze and looked at the Holy Light Sword that had pierced through his chest. Then, he looked at Zhou Zhou, who had a resolute gaze in front of him. His eyes gradually became blank, and the aura on his body gradually weakened until it completely disappeared. Boom! Algernon fell to the ground weakly, stirring up some smoke and dust. Zhou Zhou looked at the corpse in joy and disbelief. He had actually killed a low-tier god spirit elementary grade 3 levels higher than the diamond-tier advanced grade god spirit. Even though this god spirit was at the lowest level, it was still a true god spirit. He had actually done such an unbelievable thing. At this moment, Bai Yun, Wu Xian, Feng Luo, Suin, and the others also looked at this scene in a daze. Clearly, they did not expect their lord to actually achieve such an achievement. Zhou Zhou ignored their reactions and looked at the kill notification in front of him. Zhou Zhou ignored their reactions and looked at the kill notification in front of him. Blessing of the War God. You have obtained an additional 160 billion promotion energy points. Boom. The surging promotion energy suddenly appeared in Zhou Zhou's heart. Then, it surged into various parts of his body in an extremely gentle manner, strengthening his body and soul. Zhou Zhou's body trembled. Then, he felt an even stronger power circulating in his body. He looked at the strength column in his stats list. His guess was right. He had broken through extraordinary tier elementary grade. A smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. He did not expect to break through again not long after he advanced to the diamond tier advanced grade and directly advanced to the extraordinary tier elementary grade. The extraordinary tier. This level was already considered top-notch combat strength among the local kingdom-level factions in the High Continent. He could be considered an intermediate-level expert even in the entire myriad worlds. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied. Then, his gaze landed on Algernon's corpse. He squatted down, placed his hand on it, and began to extract it. Lord Talent Notification. Your loots have been enhanced by the King of Loots, Perfect Loots. Grade +1. Title hint. Your loots have been affected by the title of the strongest lord. The number of loots has increased by 150%. Lord Talent Notification. You have obtained perfect loots, 150 divine crystals, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 3 shadow child divine spark fragments, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 3 shadow massacre divine spark fragments, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 3 death shadow rays equipment, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 3 shadow cloak equipment, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 1 god spirit book, middle-level god tier elementary grade. 10 lord talent crystal fragments, green bronze tier. Algernon's corpse instantly turned into a ray of light and fused into Zhou Zhou's king's treasure chest, turning into a large number of loots. Zhou Zhou looked at them one by one. The first was the divine crystals. They were seed-sized items that were completely crystal clear and suffused with golden light. Treasure name, divine crystal. Treasure grade, mid-level god tier elementary grade. Treasure effect, the transaction currency of God spirits. It can also be one of the sources of God spirits' divine power. It is an extremely precious currency. Treasure description, treasures used by God spirits to trade and increase their strength. Even God spirits value them very much. So this is the transaction currency of the God spirits. Moreover, it can be used as a source of divine power for God spirits. It can even increase the strength of God spirits. What a good treasure! Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. He put it away solemnly and looked at the treasures behind him. Treasure name, divine spark fragment, god of shadow and assassination, son of shadow. Treasure grade, mid-level god tier advanced grade. Treasure effect, the user has a chance to comprehend the famous law skill of the god of shadow and assassination, son of shadow, with the divine spark fragment. Treasure description, the divine spark fragment of the god of shadow and assassination. Those who are talented in the law of shadow and assassination can comprehend his famous law skill, son of shadow. Treasure name, divine spark fragment, god of shadow and assassination, shadow massacre. Treasure grade, mid-level god tier advanced grade. Treasure effect, the user holding the divine spark fragment has a chance to comprehend the famous law skill of the god of shadow and assassination, shadow massacre. Treasure description, the divine spark fragment of the god of shadow and assassination. Those who are talented in the law of shadow and assassination can comprehend his famous law skill, shadow massacre. Zhou Zhou looked at the 6 divine spark fragments and nodded in satisfaction. These were 6 law skills. Not only could he learn it, but he could also distribute it to his subordinates to master. This way, he would not have to deal with law skill level experts personally as a lord in the future. Zhou Zhou took a son of shadow divine spark fragment and a shadow massacre divine spark fragment and chose to learn them without hesitation. In the next moment, his vision darkened as he entered the memories of the god of shadow and assassination. The god of shadow and assassination was called She before becoming a god. She understood one thing ever since he had memories. He wanted to kill an existence in the future. This existence was at the legendary god spirit level. He had to become a god in the future in order to kill a god. This was because only god spirits could deal with god spirits. He did not know why he wanted to deal with that god spirit, but he was willing to believe in this innate talent intuition. This was because he felt that this was his natural mission and fate. He could not avoid it. Therefore, he began to train his body since he was young to strengthen his physical fitness and assassination ability. Later on, his unique behavior accidentally attracted the attention of an assassin boss, even though he did not have many friends when he was young. In the end, the assassin boss took Shi away and taught him how to fight, allowing him to embark on the extraordinary tier path of an assassin. Right on the heels of that, the world changed. Countless normal animals absorbed unknown spiritual energy and became powerful extraordinary tier monsters. As for the monsters that were already extraordinary tier, their strength had advanced further and become even more terrifying super creatures. Doomsday descended because of this. On Doomsday, she used a dagger to wander in the shadows and assassinate countless monster creatures, saving more and more clansmen and building shelters. He grew stronger in the process, until he became a god immediately. The moment he became a god, he also learned the truth of Doomsday through this world's will. A high-level god-tier expert whose strength was infinitely close to the true god-tier had died in this world. On the one hand, it would increase the world slot and the strength of the creatures in the world, and the will of a high-level god was also invading the will of this world, wanting to replace it. The worlds will sense the danger, so it chose it, which had the best talent and potential in the world, to grow quickly and deal with the will left behind by a high-level god. With the help of the world's will, she defeated that high-level god tier. At the same time, his strength increased to the level of a mid-level god tier advanced grade. The world's will was saved. Later on, in order to make a further breakthrough, she was sent to the High Continent by the world's will. However, later on, during the training in the High Continent, she encountered danger and died. However, even though he had died, his soul had been taken back to his world by the world's will because it was the son of the world and participated in the doomsday. After going through that period of remembering, Zhou Zhou only had the Son of Shadow and Shadow Massacre as two designated law skills to choose from. He naturally did not have any thoughts and chose to learn them directly. Then, he mastered these two law skills. Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. I didn't expect to experience the God Ascension experience of the Son of the World of a small world. But the High Continent is really dangerous. Even the Son of the World will die on the High Continent. Zhou Zhou lamented. Then, he opened these two law skills. Law skill name, Son of Shadow. Law skill quality, mid-level God tier advanced grade. Law skill power description. The owner of the law skill is a favorite of the Law of Shadow. He can easily comprehend the existence of the Law of Shadow. During the process of comprehending it, there is a high chance of comprehending skills related to the Law of Shadow, and a very small chance of comprehending the corresponding law skill of the Law of Shadow. Law skill name, Shadow Massacre. Law skill quality, mid-level God tier advanced grade. Law skill power description. The law skill controller can hide in the darkness and shadow, completely hiding his figure, aura, killing intent, voice, and all other factors that might expose his location. Only light-type law skills of the same level can tell the location of the owner of the law skill. When the law skill controller hid in the darkness and shadow to fight, he would not leave his invisibility state. During the killing process in the shadow, if the law skill controller kills the target, his physical fitness will obtain a weak, permanent enhancement. My good lord, what top-grade law skills! Zhou Zhou looked at the two law skills in surprise. Of these two law skills, one could increase the law talent, making the owner of the law skill a favorite of the shadow law. The other was an enhanceable law skill that could make one permanently invisible and become stronger in killing. Even though Zhou Zhou did not know much about god spirits, he felt that any of these two law skills would probably make many normal life forms and even god spirits tempted. I can reward the remaining Son of Shadow and Shadow Massacre to the generals who have made contributions in the future. Zhou Zhou looked at the remaining 4 divine spark fragments and thought to himself. Then, he put them away and looked at the other 6 pieces of equipment. 3 of the equipment were death shadow rays. The other 3 pieces of equipment were the shadow cloaks. Most importantly, they were all divine artifacts. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and looked over. The first was the Death Shadow Rays. The Death Shadow Rays was a gray dagger. Even though it looked ordinary, Zhou Zhou naturally would not underestimate it. Information about the divine artifact appeared. Divine artifact name, Death Shadow Rays. Divine artifact grade, mid-level God tier advanced grade. Divine artifact Law 1, Death Mark. Gives the enemy in your field of vision a death mark. Then, no matter where the enemy is, the owner of the Death Shadow Rays can sense the enemy's location. At the same time, the enemy marked by the death mark will be enveloped in the shadow of death and feel the fear of death at all times. Note, at the same time, the death mark can only mark one enemy. Divine Artifact Law 2, Weakness Assassination. During battle with an enemy recorded by the death mark, the user has a small chance of seeing through the other party's weakness. If you attack this weakness, the enemy will suffer greater damage. Prompt. It can recognize its master as its soul. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. The effect of this Death Shadow Ray's first ability, Death Mark, was not bad. It was almost equivalent to an unlimited use of the compass of the soul of vengeance effect. Still, the compass of the soul of vengeance did not need to lock onto the enemy in its field of vision. It only needed to think about the enemy directly to lock onto the enemy's location. In addition, even though the compass of the soul of vengeance would not make the enemy feel the threat of death at all times, it would not make the enemy sense it. From this point of view, Zhou Zhou still preferred the compass of the soul of vengeance more. However, the death mark of the death shadow rays could be reused. There was only one use left of the compass of the soul of vengeance. In that case, both could be considered to have their advantages and disadvantages. Not to mention, this death mark could also be connected to the next divine artifact law, weakness assassination, a top-grade offensive divine artifact. Zhou Zhou was a little stunned by the attributes of this divine artifact. In addition, he roughly understood why divine artifacts were called divine artifacts. This was because the divine artifact actually carried law skills that only God's spirits could master. In other words, it was the law of the divine artifact. In this way, a God spirit with a divine artifact was equivalent to mastering other law skills. In that case, the combat strength of a God spirit who had grasped a divine artifact and a God spirit who had not. They were almost two different combat strengths. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou immediately recognized the soul of one of the Death Shadow Ray's divine artifacts as its master. Soon, he felt an additional close connection between him and this divine artifact. He vaguely felt that even if he was separated from this divine artifact in the future, as long as the distance between the two was within this connection, he could let this divine artifact fly to his side with a thought. And what surprised him the most was, he realized that he could actually activate this divine artifact. He was a lord who had just stepped into the extraordinary tier elementary grade and could actually cross nearly 4 major levels to activate this mid-level god tier advanced grade divine artifact. The reason why it could be activated was because as a chaos human, the chaotic origin energy in his body could replace divine power to a certain extent to control the divine artifact. This was also what he had just found out. So, the characteristic of my chaos human bloodline is that not only can I absorb and optimize the bloodline of all races, but I can also use my unique chaos origin energy to control the divine artifact in advance. The joy in Zhou Zhou's expression became even more obvious. The original spirit race was born as the god of the small world in their bodies. The Chaos Gods race was born with the chaotic divine vessel and could become god spirits without any bottlenecks. The Shepherd's God race was born with the ability to master God's spirit abilities, law skills. These 3 top-notch races were all born with bloodline abilities related to God spirits. Zhou Zhou had always thought that his chaos human bloodline was not inferior to these 3 top races. However, he had always felt that his chaos human bloodline was a little lacking in God's spirit-related abilities. It was not that his chaos human bloodline was lacking, but because he had never encountered a divine artifact until now. His mixed human bloodline could actually simulate divine power and control divine artifacts with a non-god spirit body. From this point of view, his chaos human bloodline was not inferior to the 3 races. With a thought, Zhou Zhou put this divine artifact into the king's treasure box in his glabella space. Then, he looked at the information of another divine artifact. Divine artifact name: Shadow Cloak. Divine artifact grade: mid-level god tier advanced grade. Divine artifact law: shadow concealment. The body's shadow cloak can enter a permanent invisibility state. If the user has an invisibility ability, shadow concealment can greatly increase the user's own invisibility ability while maintaining the ability of the divine artifact law. Prompt: it can recognize its master as its soul. Zhou Zhou's expression was much calmer when he saw the divine artifact. The laws of this divine artifact were almost similar to the invisibility effect of the Shadow Massacre Law skill. Other than the complementary effect, there were no other characteristics. But even so, it was also a divine artifact. Zhou Zhou naturally recognized its soul as its master. Then, he put away the divine artifacts and looked at the last loots. Treasure name: Book of the God Spirit. Treasure grade: Mid-level God tier advanced grade. Treasure effect. A mythical tier book that records the path of the god of shadow and assassination, streamed to godhood. After using it, you can walk the path of becoming the god of shadow and assassination. Treasure description. God inheritance book. After using it, you can walk on a smooth path to becoming a god, but whether you can really become a god in the end depends on the user himself. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath after reading the information of this treasure. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. He did not expect this. This was actually a god spirit inheritance book that could allow life forms to walk the path to becoming gods. With this book of god spirit, the person who used it could follow the path that this god spirit had already walked on to become a god. This kind of becoming a god was equivalent to having a teacher by his side and personally demonstrating the steps of becoming a god to his disciple. The difficulty of becoming a god was almost thousands of times easier than living beings without the book of God's spirit. What a treasure! But who should I give it to? Zhou Zhou pondered. As a lord, even though he did not know how to choose his path to becoming a god, he would definitely not take the path of an assassin becoming a god. It was just too dangerous. No other reason. Moreover, he also looked down on the God Spirit book of the mid-level God tier advanced grade. As the strongest lord of all races from the previous event, his target was at least a true God tier. If Zhou Zhou could, master God tier, or even the lord of all races would be where his ambition lay. I'll give it to Suan. Zhou Zhou quickly thought. Suan was an assassin to begin with. This book of God Spirit could be said to be quite suitable for the other party. Moreover, with his Master God tier advanced grade potential, he could definitely greatly increase the speed at which he became the god of shadow and assassination. It was even easy to surpass the god of shadow and assassination. This mid-level God tier advanced grade God Spirit book will not restrict Suan's future. It will only speed up the realization of his potential. Zhou Zhou thought to himself as he looked at the book of God Spirit. He stopped thinking about it and called Suan over. Soon, Suan came over. "Greetings, Your Majesty," Suan said respectfully. "Imichim, you've made many contributions recently. I called you over to reward you." Zhou Zhou went straight to the point. "This is my duty," Suan said calmly. "If you make contributions, you will be rewarded. If you make mistakes, you will be punished. No need to say anything else." Zhou Zhou did not waste his breath and handed over the book of God's Spirit and the two divine spark fragments. With this divine spark fragment that recorded the two law skills, Son of Shadow and Shadow Massacre, Suan's path to becoming a god should be able to accelerate again. After the god spirit assassination just now, Zhou Zhou urgently hoped that a god spirit would appear among his subordinates. On the other side, after seeing the item handed over by Zhou Zhou, Suan took it respectfully with both hands. When he saw the information of these treasures, his body immediately trembled, and his eyes were filled with shock. When Zhou Zhou saw this, a smile appeared on his face. Ever since this kid recovered his memories, he had always maintained an assassin's expression and no longer looked like a young kid. Zhou Zhou felt happy that his tricks had succeeded now that he saw that he could not hold back his expression because of these treasures. "This reward should be worthy of your attention, right?" Zhou Zhou said deliberately. Suan took a deep breath, his expression becoming even more respectful. He said gratefully, "Thank you for the reward, Your Majesty. I won't be able to repay Your Majesty's kindness even if I were to die 10,000 times." Zhou Zhou stood up and walked to Suan's side. He patted his shoulder. "We're all on the same side. There's no need to say this," he said. Suan had long become his dead loyal subject. Zhou Zhou had always been very generous to his dead loyal subjects. Suan did not say anything else and silently recorded this kindness in his heart. The kindness of the hero inheritance, the kindness of his aptitude increasing, the kindness of his path to becoming a god. Suan did not know how to repay the Lord after all the kindness. All he could do was let his sword continuously clear the obstacles on the way for his Lord until the day he dies in battle. Suan left to absorb this book of God spirits and embark on the smooth path of becoming a god spirit. As for failure, That was naturally impossible. If a genius with the potential of a master god-tier advanced grade could not even become a god, Zhou Zhou would question the significance of his potential in the stats information that the Supreme will set up. After Suan left, Zhou Zhou opened his attribute panel and looked at the law skill he had mastered. They were law skills: Absolute Light, law skill; Holy Lightsword, law skill; Son of Shadow, law skill; Shadow Massacre. Zhou Zhou looked at the 4 law skills and nodded in satisfaction. This number of law skills was probably comparable to some existences who had just entered the low-tier deity realm. Then, his gaze landed on the law skill, the Holy Light Sword, and he rejoiced. Fortunately, I had epic tier Lord talent, Intuition, which allowed me to choose the Holy Light Sword as a law skill back then. Otherwise, I didn't even have any means to break the defense of the divine artifact cloak of the god of shadow rays and hidden murder just now. If that really happened, I might really die. Even though I have the power of the final nirvana to revive, the number of resurrections is precious. It's better to save as much as possible. In that case, my guess back then was right. The epic tier Lord talent Intuition, might not be useful usually, but it might be able to save lives at the critical moment. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. This Lord talent was indeed not trash. At this moment, Aaliyah knocked on the door and walked in. "Your Majesty, Princess Leia requests an audience," she said respectfully. "Let her in." Aaliyah received the order and left. Soon, Leia quickly walked in. Zhou Zhou smiled and walked over. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Leia pounce into his arms and hug him tightly. "You scared me to death. I heard that a god spirit came to assassinate you. At that time, I thought. Leia sobbed softly and did not dare to say the rest. "Aren't I fine now?" Zhou Zhou stroked her hair. It felt good to be cared for by the girl he liked, and a smile subconsciously appeared on his face. "Are you really okay?" Leia stood up, wanting to check if Zhou Zhou was injured. Zhou Zhou smiled as he let him examine him. After a long time, Leia finally heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that Zhou Zhou was really not injured. "Look, I told you I was fine." Zhou Zhou smiled. "You're amazing. The god spirit actually didn't hurt you, and was even killed by you." Leia looked at Zhou Zhou with admiration like a little girl. She had gotten rid of her status as a princess of a dangerous country and became Zhou Zhou's woman. The current Leia had gradually shed her cautious personality and become as carefree as an ordinary girl. Not only did she dare to say what she did not dare to say in the past, she was also unabashedly willing to express her admiration for her man. Zhou Zhou liked her change very much. This also proved his ability as a man and a lord. God spirits are not immortal. Of course we can kill them. It's not like no god spirit has died in the past. Zhou Zhou shook his head. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. That god spirit disturbed our rest just now. Let's continue resting now," Zhou Zhou said. Leia nodded. Soon, the bedroom light went out again. After the two of them battled each other on the bed until Zhou Zhou fully proved his ability to conquer as a lord and successfully defeated Leia. On the bed, "When are you going to see my father?" Leia hugged Zhou Zhou and asked. "What's wrong? Are you in such a hurry to hand the Aurora Kingdom to me?" Zhou Zhou said with a mischievous smile. Leia nodded. "The Aurora Kingdom caused my brothers to die on the battlefield. Therefore, the Aurora Kingdom is both a heavy responsibility and a burden that my father can't bear to continue. Even though you used that magical pastry to make my father younger. But I can tell that even though father looks younger on the surface, his heart still looks like he has suffered and is old. It's a good thing for father to unburden himself as soon as possible," Leia said worriedly. "I'll go to the Aurora Kingdom tomorrow," Zhou Zhou promised. He actually had the same intention. Leia nodded. Then, she suddenly thought of something and could not help but smile. "Speaking of which, I wonder how father will feel when he finds out that you've already established your own kingdom by occupying the Taiyan Kingdom before accepting the Aurora Kingdom." She smiled. Zhou Zhou smiled and did not say anything. How could taking over a ready-made kingdom give a man a greater sense of accomplishment than directly conquering a kingdom himself. He did not say anything else. After chatting with Liya for a while, they fell asleep together. At the same time, in the Netherbark Kingdom, Pope Floyd had been in an excited state ever since he sent Algernon to assassinate the Queen of the Blazing Sun, fantasizing about his future after obtaining the divine artifact of the race. This King of the Blazing Sun is also a fool. Floyd was extremely excited. How long has this guy been in the High Continent? He actually dares to build a kingdom? He muttered to himself. Ha ha ha, once he establishes a kingdom, the rules of the Supreme Agreement that restrict our movements will be ineffective. We veteran kingdom-level lord factions will no longer have any scruples and can use any means to take the initiative to attack the Blazing Sun King. And I, as the oldest kingdom-level lord faction closest to the Blazing Sun Kingdom, a huge opportunity like a race divine artifact should be an opportunity given to me by the supreme will. When the time comes, this Pope will offer the divine artifact of the race to His Excellency the God of Death again. When the God of Death is happy, he might directly give me the deity position of an Elven of Death. Floyd's eyes were burning with ambition. The Elven of Death. As the closest divine servants to the God of Death, there were only about 100 of them in total in the past countless years. Countless years ago, when the God of Death, Thanatos, used the Soul Reaper army to wantonly conquer the life forms of the myriad worlds, the Elven of Death was the person in charge of important positions in the various Soul Reaper armies. Important positions like Legion Commander and Deputy Commander were also held by the Angel of Death. It could be seen how extraordinary the Elven of Death was. As long as he could become an Elven of Death, he could immediately become a high-level deity without even cultivating. This was the special authority given to the Elven of Death by the God of Death, Thanatos. If he could become an Elven of Death, he could almost be considered to have reached the heavens in a single step. When the time comes, the position of Pope, he wouldn't even look at it. Just as he was fantasizing about the future, a black cloth that emitted the aura of death suddenly flew out from his waist and floated in front of him. Floyd was stunned when he saw the black cloth. Floyd naturally knew this black cloth. This black cloth was an oracle from the God of Death. More than 100 years ago, a holy son was born here. In order to reward their church, the God of Death specially asked Algernon to bring the oracle here. From then on, the past popes could use this oracle to let Algernon save their church once at a critical moment. After Algernon took action, this oracle would leave the church and return to His Excellency the God of Death. Still, what is going on now? Floyd's eyes were blank. Logically speaking, the matter between him and Algernon should be considered a transaction and a private matter between the two of them. This situation shouldn't trigger the God of Death's oracle, right? Why did the God of Death's oracle emerge on its own? Just as Floyd was in a daze. Rip. The sound of cloth tearing could be heard. Under Floyd's terrified gaze, this oracle from the God of Death, a treasure that their God of Death church had treasured for more than 100 years, actually ripped into pieces in front of it. Right on the heels of that, these oracle fragments suddenly ignited with black flames and burned themselves in midair before dissipating with the wind. Floyd watched this scene with a frozen expression. There was only one thought in his mind. The God of shadow rays and hidden murder, Algernon, was dead. This oracle that concerned him would only burn itself and dissipated only when he was dead. How is that possible? Could it be that he didn't succeed in killing the Blazing Sun King and was killed by him instead? What kind of joke was this? A god who specialized in shadow rays and assassination, even if he was only at the lowest low-tier deity elementary grade, shouldn't be killed by a human lord who had just established a beginner kingdom. However, the truth was in front of him. No matter how unwilling he was to believe it, Floyd had to believe it. Its expression was uncertain for a while. Then, it suddenly remembered the Titan King's words. Alliance with the Titan King? No. One Titan kingdom is not enough. I want to gather more kingdom-level lord forces to deal with this King of the Blazing Sun together. At this moment, Floyd had already regarded Zhou Zhou as the most difficult enemy in his life and decided to activate a power he could use to destroy him. Blazing Sun City. There were no more accidents in the latter half of the night. Zhou Zhou naturally woke up in the morning. Then, he came to the gate of summoning alone after breakfast with Li Ya. A text notification appeared. Prompt: do you want to summon immediately?
Yes.
The gate of summoning suddenly lit up with a bright white light. Then, a large number of subjects walked out. A moment later, 1,955 new subjects walked out of the gate of summoning. Greetings, my lord, X1, 955. All the new subjects said respectfully. Welcome to Blazing Sun City, Zhou Zhou said. Then, he asked all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned 136 professionals this time. There were 51 more professionals than usual. Then, he began to check the information of these professional subjects. Among the 106 professional subjects were 1 white platinum tier advanced grade appraiser, 1 white platinum tier advanced grade archaeologist, 1 white platinum tier advanced grade mage, 1 white platinum tier advanced grade martial artist, and 1 white platinum tier advanced grade architect. The rest were white platinum tier intermediate grade and below life professionals and combat professionals. Then, he asked the staff beside him to arrange the work of these new subjects. Then, he led his troops to clean up one side of the time ruins, went to the golem lair to summon the 126 golems today, and finally arrived at the monster ranch. And now, a total of 36 monster ranches nurtured a total of 720,000 fog monsters with the highest white platinum tier advanced grade. Even though it was far inferior to the number of soldiers under his command, it was still enough to be an appetizer for his soldiers before the war. He did not waste any time and asked the soldiers to start cleaning up the monster ranch. A moment later, the monster ranch was cleaned up and all the loots were extracted. In terms of the mist cores, he had obtained a total of 61,239,680 green bronze tier mist cores, 18,423,360 white silver tier mist cores, 9,017,780 yellow gold tier mist cores, 4,707,010 white platinum tier mist cores, and 161,100 diamond tier mist cores. There were also 1,217,780 soldier type class change certificates, 140,000 king of yellow gold recruitment books, 140,000 king of yellow gold class change certificates, 61,420 poison crossbow soldier recruitment books, 960 elemental archer recruitment books, 179,630 aurora cavalry recruitment books, 280,000 violent storm spirit recruitment books, 280,000 violent storm spirit class change certificates, 162 fragments of the proof of legion, 363,984 true faith tier scarlet crystals, 206,056 pious tier scarlet crystals, 149,960 fanatic tier scarlet crystals, 311 white platinum tier and yellow gold tier mount contracts, 80,000 iron-eating bear pet eggs, 80,000 Fear Falcon wings and Fear Falcon 3 radar, 13.5 million units of original gold. As for the other loots, Zhou Zhou did not look at them much because they were not very important and there were too many types. He looked at the total number of soldier-type recruitment books and smiled. 1,082,010 books. The recruitment books provided by the Monster Ranch alone reached 1 million in a day. It directly increased his military strength by 1 million. Awesome. Zhou Zhou put them into the king's treasure box without another word. Then, he went to the gate of summoning and began to summon them. At this moment, a line of text appeared. Kingdom Authority. You can spend 100 white platinum tier mist cores to immediately summon all the soldiers you want to recruit. Kingdom Authority. You can spend 100 white platinum tier mist cores to immediately summon all the soldiers you want to recruit. Zhou Zhou was pleasantly surprised. There's actually such a kingdom privilege? To the current him, 100 white platinum tier mist cores were nothing. Compared to this, The hour or two saved from immediately recruiting 1,000,000 soldiers could be far more valuable to him than 100 white platinum tier mist cores. Therefore, he could not save this mist core. As the 100 white platinum tier mist cores disappeared, a large number of humanoid shadows suddenly appeared in front of the gate of summoning. Right on the heels of that, these humanoid phantoms quickly condensed and turned into human subjects. A total of 1,000,000 subjects instantly appeared in front of the gate of summoning. Fortunately, Zhou Zhou had left a large amount of empty space here in advance. Otherwise, there would probably be people stepping on people. At this moment, Bai Yun quickly came over and brought these 1,082,010 recruits to the Blazing Sun Army. I have 4,353,287 soldiers under my command now. This doesn't include the more than 6 million people in the Star Alliance. Moreover, the insight defection of the Lords of the Star Alliance and I haven't used it today. After today, the military strength under my command will increase again. Zhou Zhou had a smile on his face. Your Majesty, there are 11 subjects outside who jointly want to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom. They all seem to have extraordinary abilities. My lord, do you want to take a look? At this moment, Zhang Yuanqi quickly walked over and said. Zhou Zhou immediately reacted. These were his mythical reputation rating talents and reputation rating talents. Let's go take a look. Zhou Zhou immediately said. Zhang Yuanqi nodded. Then, the two of them walked towards the 11 people. When Zhou Zhou saw those talents with reputation rating and mythical reputation rating, he realized that there were not 11 of them, but 17 of them. At this moment, a soldier in charge of guarding them quickly walked over and reported respectfully. Your Majesty. Not long after they arrived, 6 more humans with extraordinary auras came to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom. That's them. The soldier pointed at the 6 new subjects. Zhou Zhou nodded. He remembered just thinking about it. Among the 17 people, 10 talents attracted by reputation rating and 1 mythical reputation rating person were rewarded by the Lord of all races. The other 5 talents should be the 5 talents attracted by reputation rating rewarded by the Lord of Cerulean Planet's world announcement when he broke through the Taiyan Kingdom and obtained the Kingdom Token. There were 16 of them. As for the last person, should be a talent attracted by one of the effects of his white silver tier Lord talent, Embrace of the Conqueror. After conquering a kingdom, you can obtain the loyalty of a hero with an extraordinary tier hero fate level slot. Previously, when he obtained the kingdom token of the Taiyan Kingdom, he had indeed heard the notification that an extraordinary tier hero would pledge loyalty to him. From the looks of it, it should be one of them. Then, he began to look at their attribute information. Among the 15 talents attracted by reputation rating, there were 2 extraordinary tier advanced grade architects, 2 extraordinary tier advanced grade blacksmiths, 3 extraordinary intermediate grade martial artists, 3 extraordinary intermediate grade bloodline warlocks, 3 extraordinary tier intermediate grade array masters, and 2 extraordinary elementary grade farmers. A mythical reputation rating talent was an immortal Dao cultivator. He was young and handsome, and his eyes revealed a faint abhorrence of evil. He carried an immortal sword that emitted a faint 5-colored light on his back. He looked extraordinary and like an immortal. Subject, Qi Xintian. Combat class name, Sword God. Class, Epic Tier Advanced Grade. Battle class name, Qi Practitioner. Strength level, Epic Tier Advanced Grade, Body Fusion Late Stage. A ability overview. From the Myriad Sword Immortal Sect in the Immortal World. He is the most dazzling genius of the Myriad Sword Immortal Sect. He was born with the Heavenly Sword Immortal Body and has extraordinary attainments in the Sword Dao and Immortal Dao cultivation. The most glorious battle record was when he used the Myriad Sword Immortal formation to kill an expert at the true Immortal Tier Elementary Grade as an Epic Tier Advanced Grade Sword Immortal. As long as he doesn't die, he is destined to dominate the Immortal Dao in the future. Skills, Talent, Heavenly Sword Immortal Body, Talent, Immortal Sword Summoning, Talent, Heavenly Sword Heart Illumination, Talent, 5 Element Spirit Body, Epic Tier Advanced Grade Myriad Sword Immortal Scripture, Epic Tier Advanced Grade Myriad Sword Immortal Formation, Epic Tier Advanced Grade Immortal Sword Heart Array, Epic Tier Advanced Grade 5 Element Sword Array, Epic Tier Intermediate Grade 1000 Sword Array, Epic Tier Elementary Grade Flying Sword Technique, Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade Flying Sword Technique. Loyalty, 95. Potential, Master God Tier Elementary Grade. Zhou Zhou swallowed. This person was actually a body fusion late-stage expert. He suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, "How's your status in your Myriad Sword Immortal Sect?" A body fusion realm expert was actually described as the most dazzling genius in his ability overview and not a sect expert? Then how ridiculous would this Myriad Sword Immortal Sect be? Your Majesty, I was originally from the lower realm. Later on, I was discovered to have a Sword Dao constitution, so I was guided to ascend in advance and came to the Myriad Sword Immortal Sect. Then, I directly became a true disciple of a Supreme Elder. In terms of status, I'm equivalent to a Golden Immortal Tier expert in the sect. According to the levels of the Supreme Will, I'm probably at a status comparable to a mid-level God Tier expert. Qi Xintian thought for a moment and said, "My God." Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue. An Epic Tier Advanced Greatsword God was actually treated as equivalent to a mid-level God Tier. The Myriad Sword Immortal Sect valued Qi Xintian very much. However, he was indeed worthy of this importance. Not only did this person have high potential, he could also kill a low-tier deity head-on with just the strength of an Epic Tier Advanced Grade. At that time, he did not have the enhancement of the Dragon Slayer's strength. He completed the kill with his true ability. As expected of a genius, it was really terrifying. He suddenly thought of something but did not say it. There was a hero beside him after all. Then, he looked at the hero. Subject, Mai Luan, Hero Unit. Hero Title, King of Wind. Position, Extraordinary Tier Heroes Fate Level. Territory, Blazing Sun Kingdom. Strength Level, Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade. Ability Overview. The original Archmage of the Gu Ting Kingdom was good at using wind elemental magic. Later on, he left the kingdom and came to the Blazing Sun Kingdom because he was dissatisfied with the king's oppression of the subjects. He became the subject of the Blazing Sun King. Bloodline, Human Bloodline, Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade, 80%. Wind-Splitting Demon Eagle, Epic Tier Advanced Grade, 20%. Skills, Hero Skill, Wind Elemental True Body, Hero Skill, Death Hurricane, Talent, Super Elemental Affinity, Wind, Talent, Magic Genius, Extraordinary Advanced Grade Extreme Tornado, Extraordinary Advanced Grade Void Splitting Violent Storm, Intermediate Grade Swift Flying, Extraordinary Elementary Grade Gust Entanglement, Diamond Tier Advanced Grade Summoning Wind Elemental Lord, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Multiple Wind Blade Technique. Loyalty, 88. Potential, Epic Tier Advanced Grade. Hero Biography, 1. When the Gu Ting Kingdom was invaded by the Abyss, he stood up and killed the Demon Lord, Sexel alone, saving a large number of people. Hero's Personal Reputation Rating +1. Human Race Reputation +1000. High Continent Reputation +1. 2. Creates many Wind Elemental Advanced Grade spells and leaves his name in the history of magic. In the end, he successfully walked the path of a hero and became the first King of Wind. Hero's Personal Reputation Rating +1. Human Race Reputation +10,000. High Continent Reputation +3. Zhou Zhou nodded. Including this King of Wind, he now had as many as 10 heroes under his command. Even though it was far inferior to the Elven Empire, he could chase slowly. With the Lord Talent of the King of Lutes, he could obtain a large number of hero inheritance secret manuals. He would be able to catch up one day. Then, the staff brought these talents to their respective positions. As for this King of Wind, he was brought to the Blazing Sun Army to work. Qi Xintian was the only sword immortal left. Can I become a Qi practitioner? Zhou Zhou went straight to the point. Qi Xintian raised his eyebrows. He had thought that His Majesty had something to ask him, but he did not expect it to be about this. I do have the Qi Practitioner Class Change Certificate. But Your Majesty, you should have your own class, right? Qi Xintian said. I have my own special opportunity. I can take on another class. Zhou Zhou smiled. His fighting god full-time master 2 could allow him to have 2 additional classes. One of them had already been occupied by the Lord of the End. He planned to become a Qi practitioner part-time for the second slot. That was because the upper limit of the Qi practitioner profession was quite high. The highest level could even be cultivated to the Sage tier, Master God tier. Moreover, the various immortal Dao spells mastered by Qi practitioners were many times stronger than other classes. Cultivating to a profound realm and moving stars and turning the world upside down was only a matter of seconds. Just like Qi Xiantian, he could defeat in true immortal tier elementary grade opponent with his body fusion late-stage cultivation. Firstly, his talent and opportunities were indeed powerful, allowing him to fight above his level. Secondly, the upper limit of the Qi practitioner profession was too high. However, this profession had its drawbacks. That was, it consumed extremely many resources. Qi practitioners with sufficient resources were completely different from Qi practitioners with poor resources. However, as the king of loots, Zhou Zhou did not lack resources the least. This was also the reason why he dared to work as a Qi practitioner. Your Majesty, what an opportunity! Qi Xiantian was a little surprised. Then, he did not say anything else. He flipped his right hand and saw a certificate filled with immortal energy appear in his hand. Zhou Zhou took it and looked at it. Item name: Qi Practitioner Class Change Certificate. Item level: Special tier. Item effect: Special Combat Class Change Tool. After using it, you can become a Special Combat Class, Qi Practitioner. You will also have a Class 2 Foundation Establishment Cultivation Technique, Spit Turbidity Qigong Technique, Qi Practitioner Theoretical Common Sense, and the initial strength of the Qi Refinement Realm. Item description: Special Combat Class Certificate. It can allow humans to become the legendary Qi practitioners and pursue the immortal Tao of longevity. Note 1. Qi practitioners are a rare special class of the human race. Only some humans with aptitude can change their profession. Note 2. Only those with spiritual roots can cultivate as Qi practitioners. Zhou Zhou was looking forward to it when he first saw this class change certificate. However, when he saw the requirements for the spiritual root at the back, he immediately became nervous. Spiritual root? He did not know if he had a spiritual root as a chaos human, so he did not think too much about it and chose to use it. This class change certificate that was filled with immortal energy turned into dense immortal energy and surged into his glabella. A cooling feeling spread from his glabella soul to various parts of his body, making him feel comfortable. In the outside world, when Qi Xiantian saw that His Majesty had successfully used the Qi Practitioner Class Change Certificate, a smile gradually appeared on his face. But soon, he was shocked. This was because in his perspective, the surface of Zhou Zhou's body was emitting a sparkling treasure light. At the same time, a faint chaotic aura appeared on the surface of his body, and a temperament that seemed to be the origin of all things naturally emitted from Zhou Zhou's body. Qi Xiantian found it difficult to describe this feeling. This feeling was like a wanderer meeting his parents and suddenly feeling like returning home. And this special physique is very powerful and has extremely high potential. It's even far superior to my heavenly sword immortal body. Qi Xiantian had a guess. However, it was precisely because of this that he was even more shocked. His heavenly sword immortal body could even be considered a heavenly Dao tier immortal body in the eyes of the higher-ups of the myriad sword immortal sect. It meant that it was only a matter of time before he reached the top of the great Dao in the future. What kind of constitution would a physique that was far more terrifying than his heavenly sword immortal body be? Moreover, this chaotic aura was also very special. Generally speaking, only existences above the zenith heaven golden immortal realm would begin to come into contact with the chaos Qi. His Majesty actually had such an aura. It was really unbelievable. He suddenly thought of something and his expression changed slightly. At the same time, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. A professional panel exclusive to Qi practitioners appeared in front of him. Lord title: Lord of the Blazing Sun. Battle class name: Qi Practitioner. Spiritual root, chaos spiritual root. Constitution, chaos sacred body. Chi practitioner class, perfected foundation establishment, void refinement early stage. Refinement Chi secret manual, spit turbidity Qigong technique, level 2, completed. Advancement cultivation technique required. Spell, none. Is this my immortal Tao aptitude? Chaos spiritual root? It's good to have a spiritual root. Chaos sacred body? It looks good too. Zhou Zhou chuckled as he looked at his Chi practitioner interface. It seemed that his aptitude as a chaos human was not bad as a Chi practitioner. Your Majesty, is your spiritual root a chaos spiritual root? At this moment, Qi Xintian suddenly asked. You can tell? Zhou Zhou was stunned. It's indeed a chaos spiritual root. Then His Majesty should also have the chaos sacred body. Qi Xintian said faintly. Zhou Zhou nodded. What's so special about these two? He asked curiously. The chaos spiritual root can cultivate all types of immortal Tao cultivation techniques in the world. The 5 elements, wind, lightning, light, darkness, ice, blood, qi, all kinds of cultivation techniques can be cultivated. Thousands of great Tao will open the door to your Majesty. As for the chaos sacred body, it gives the owner supreme comprehension, allowing them to learn and master the myriad immortal Tao spells in the world. Moreover, their bodies can produce chaotic Dharma power with chaotic Dharma power. They can activate countless spells without any conflict. It's said that the chaos sacred body can also control thousands of bloodlines in the world. However, this matter is too unbelievable. Many Qi practitioners don't know if it's true or not. I'm not sure either. Qi Xintian said. Zhou Zhou was deep in thought. These abilities were quite compatible with the abilities of the chaos human bloodline. However, he did not feel any supreme comprehension. Perhaps it was because his current chaos human bloodline had yet to be upgraded to the top. Your Majesty, your current Qi practitioner cultivation is limited by the level of your cultivation technique. You can only advance to the perfected foundation establishment realm. This is a cultivation technique that can continue to break through. You can cultivate it to continue increasing the Qi practitioner realm. Qi Xintian took out a jade stone and handed it to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou took it and read it. Treasure name, cultivation transfer jade slip. Treasure grade, gradeless. Treasure effect. It records an immortal Tao cultivation technique, the Chaos Origin Manual. This cultivation technique was created by the legendary Chaos Human and can only be learned by the Chaos Human. Later on, as the Chaos Human disappeared, no one cared about this cultivation technique. Treasure description. A cultivation technique inheritance treasure of the immortal Tao civilization. It records a lost immortal Tao cultivation technique. Where did you get this cultivation technique? Zhou Zhou was pleasantly surprised. This cultivation technique was the most suitable for him. I found it in the sect's sutra library. I saw that even though this cultivation technique can't be cultivated, some of its internal cultivation theories are very profound and classic, so I took it and often comprehended it. Qi Xintian said. This cultivation technique is what I need. Zhou Zhou said. As long as your Majesty needs it. Qi Xintian said. You can go to the military officer and collect 1 million military merits later. Treat it as a reward for the class change certificate and this cultivation technique. There should be a lot of resources you need there. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said. Qi Xintian did not refuse. As a body fusion Qi practitioner, he indeed needed a huge number of cultivation resources to increase his strength realm. Then, the two of them parted ways after chatting for a while. Zhou Zhou returned to his beginner-grade Lord's Paradise and entered the cultivation room to learn and cultivate this Chaos Origin Manual. More than an hour later, in the cultivation room, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes and retracted the terrifying spiritual pressure that naturally emitted from his body. Then, he opened his Qi practitioner interface. Lord title, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Battle class name, Qi practitioner. Spiritual root, Chaos spiritual root. Constitution, Chaos sacred body. Qi practitioner level, Void Refinement Realm Early Stage. Chi Refinement Secret Manual. Chaos Origin Manual. Stage 6 Tier 1. Spells. Chaotic Flying Spear Technique. Chaotic Beast Hunting Axe Technique. Chaotic Ancient Armor Technique. Chaotic Healing Technique. Chaotic Battle Dance. Chaotic Tao Worship Ceremony. Zhou Zhou felt his powerful strength, and a smile subconsciously appeared on his face. The current me is at least 10 times stronger than before. He muttered to himself. After a long time, he restrained his emotions and began to check his new spells.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.